Hi guys, my name is Greg and welcome to my YouTube channel. Today I am having a very interesting chat with Gbenga Oni, who is the co-founder of a crypto fintech company called knack. Today Gbenga will be walking us through his tech journey. I promise you it is very interesting. And if you have any questions, please put them in the comment sections. Definitely they will be answered. So come along with us. Hi Gbenga, thank you so much for honoring my invitation. It's good to have you on here. I would just want you to just introduce yourself.
Okay.
Just tell us a bit, about who you are and what you do.
Okay. Thank you. My name is Gbenga Oni. I computer science background.
Okay.
I am a cloud and data engineer, and I have a master's degree in data science.
Okay.
I am also a serial entrepreneur. I've built different tech startups. I built fintechs. I built edtech products, and also I am currently the co-founder of Neat. Neat is a blockchain infrastructure startup in the UK, and we provide services to customers and businesses across Africa and Latam. I've founded other startups before Neat.
Before Neat, okay.
Yeah, so one was Better Grades. Better Grades is an edtech company. I started that in my undergraduate days. We built solutions for educational institutions across southwestern Nigeria.
Cool.
And I also co-founded Touch Africa. Touch Africa is a Techstars portfolio company. Right at Neat right now. So, but basically, I'm a serial entrepreneur. I like to build things that solve problems that I see around me. Basically, at any time, there's always something I'm building, regardless of even if I'm currently the co-founder of Neat, but there's always something I'm building. Like right now, I'm currently building Nimbus. Nimbus is an edtech platform that gives you that takes you on a learning path to learning DevOps engineering, cloud engineering. It provides you like labs and tutorial sessions where you can read theoretical parts and then do like a do-it-yourself thing on the lab.
So more like a practical approach to learning.
Yeah, basically.
And it's hands-free. When I mean hands-free, I don't need any tutor. I just go on there
Exactly.
from start to finish and learn myself.
Yeah.
Wow, that's huge.
Yeah, so you can learn yourself. Currently still working on it.
Okay.
Though it's live right now. It's in the beta stage. So I'm working with some students to sort of improve the user experience of the product.
Okay.
And also have more courses
No courses
on the platform. But like I said, it's a pet project. Okay.
Thank you so much for that. And that's truly enlightening. Taking us back, allowing us to see, how it all started.
Yeah.
What brought you even to this point. So moving on to your career,
Okay.
can you take us through that?
Yeah, thank you for that. If I start from like my undergraduate days, I would say so basically, like I think the first 2 years in my active professional career, I didn't work for anybody.
Okay.
I literally just worked for myself. Like I was just winging it, and I just hit the ground running and winging it. Right.
More
I
like
didn't
contract role.
like I was building my own product and trying to sell them.
Oh, okay.
To companies.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Building like computer-based testing systems and then selling them to schools. Making money that way and all of that. Because that was how I started. I didn't really have that immediate need to now that I've learned web design or web app programming, how do I get a job?
Yeah.
Like I didn't really have that phase because as I was learning, I was just building stuff basically, and I was selling them, right? Back then, I remember I sold that was a product around 120, 130,000. That was when dollar was still very high. So like for a young person then, I was not even done with school. So imagine selling one product is 120, 130,000 and you can sell to different people, right? So like it felt like a lot of money back then, right? So I didn't really see a need to want to work somewhere till like about almost 3 years after 3 to 4 years after. And I finished school. I served in, I camped in Kwara State, and then I was redeployed to Lagos. When I got to Lagos, my brother was working in Lagos. He's also a software developer.
Okay.
So when I got to Lagos, I got a job. I got a job on the island. I was staying on the mainland, so I had to like commute mainland, island every day.
That's crazy.
So that was like my first time really like having an external stress in my creative process, basically, because I had been just, when I started my career, I was working from home, building softwares and selling to people.
Yeah.
So I that life where you have to now
Report
put in
somewhere.
not necessarily report, like having to put in 2 hours of commute going, 2 hours of commute coming, doing a work has its own peculiar stress. But the attendant stress of
Having to
show
up.
to go somewhere,
Yeah.
like having like 3 hours to 4 hours commute daily, sounded very crazy to me. But I hated every moment of it. Like my first job,
Really?
basically, because it was the commute. Because when I got to the office, I was always very tired, right? And I had to sleep late, wake up early, and it was just very stressful. And I did that for about 3 months, until a day where I came from third roundabout Lekki to after Ogba area, about 2 hours journey. I just closed from work. I got to my bus stop, and as I came down from my bus stop, I felt very weak. Like I felt like fainting.
Okay.
And I had a mix of different range of emotions, like anger. And I was like, what? It just didn't make sense. That kind of life did not make sense to me. When I got home that day, I had to tell myself that, nah, this has to change, basically. And I wanted to work somewhere because I wanted to have that to see how organizations work and how the structure is. I knew how to code, basically. So if I'm going to work for somebody, knowing how to code more, getting to know how to code more wouldn't be my number one goal. It would be to learn something else that I couldn't have been able to learn
On your own.
on my own, right? So I just resigned.
Just like that.
After like a week, yeah, I just resigned.
Wow.
And I remember I was trying to like rent my home place then, but the moment I resigned, I knew there was no way I could have gotten enough money to rent my own place. So I just resigned. I packed my bags. I went back to my hometown to just go and stay with my parents. And I started researching.
You're saying that you moved back home, like you left your job and just went back home. Was it that tiring?
I know, like, because it was tiring. The thing is, I can be very patient when I'm chasing things, or like when something clicks in my head and I want to pursue it. I can be very patient. I can make decisions that will make that people around will look like, are you okay? Right?
Yeah.
But I would want to just believe that I know what I'm doing. Most times you don't, but once something clicks in my head, I just feel like I know what I'm doing, right? So I give it everything, basically. So I knew I needed a new strategy, and so I was just researching, and then I in the process, I was lucky enough to stumble on a wisdom, which was that figure out where the world is going and ensure they meet you there.
Okay.
Like before they get there, they meet you there.
Okay.
Right.
This was as far back as what year? Do you remember the year?
2019, 2018.
2018.
Yeah.
Okay.
So figure out where the world is going and ensure they meet you there. So I thought to myself, so the thing is, your conditions for working, where you work, your condition is proportional to the amount of value that you are bringing. I figured that if I got better at what I was doing, right, I had a knowledge that was not so in abundance,
So
that was
common.
scarce.
Yeah.
I can do work on my own terms.
Makes sense.
Right. So I was researching where was the world going. And I realized that a lot of startups were springing up. People were moving away from regular website hosting where you just buy a virtual hosting or something. People were moving away from that. They were moving into the cloud. Startups were raising money. They were moving into the cloud. Startups were raising money all over the world. They were moving into the cloud. There was a growing popularity. It had been growing like years before, but it wasn't really that widespread, right? So a lot of companies were just transitioning. And I figured that, and then I realized Amazon was making more money from AWS than they did from their logistics. I may be wrong, but I think that was what I saw then. And I figured for them to be making more money, there's something of value on that Amazon Web Services, right? I started researching more. I had written a project on cloud engineering. So I had
Like basic
like
knowledge.
a foundational knowledge of my final year project was on cloud engineering. I worked
Okay.
on Microsoft Azure and all of that. So I already had like a knowledge of what it was. I didn't know that there was such a growing demand for it. But immediately I got researching more. So I researched the tech from my project. I didn't really research the impact
of that.
and the growing need for
So it's
that product.
more like you knew you had the knowledge, but you didn't apply it in any way. You just
It was just something. Let me just do my project
and just get out.
and leave this school.
Yeah.
And then I started doing more research while I was home, and I realized, oh, this is where the world is going. In Africa right now, we don't have that much startups using public cloud, deploying their systems on public cloud. And I figured very soon there will be demand for it in Africa, right? So I poured myself into it. I started learning Amazon Web Services. I would pay for courses to the tune of, I think I paid over $500,000 for courses, certifications slash courses
And this is
at
back
that
in
time.
2018,
Yes,
2019.
yes. I was just learning. I just kept learning. And after like 3 months, I had written like two Amazon Web Services. I'm the kind of person that once I just, oh, this is what I want to do, or what I want to learn. That's the only thing I see. It's like that's so I would wake up. I can remember I told my mom, I said, as soon as I go home, I was like, please do something for me. Once I wake up in the morning, just get me food. Afternoon, get me food. Dinner, get me food. Thank you, ma. And she's like, you know women, don't go sit up. What do you want? Okay, no wala. So I was sorted on food. The moment I knew I was sorted on food, I was like, all my troubles are gone.
Just need time to focus.
Right? Because as we go that my mom would just say, go and fix yourself something in the kitchen. But I didn't want that distraction. So I had to like negotiate with her, like, madam, you do me a favor. So basically, so I would wake up in the morning. I was studying like 12, 14 hours every day. Basically, that was the only thing I had in my head. Study, relax, 30 minutes, study, relax, 30 minutes, like what, like round the clock, basically. So in like 3 months, I had already studied so much. I had written certifications, I had passed them, got like 90 something. So I was already on track. 4 months later, someone from my previous job, I think they did like a WhatsApp broadcast message of a job vacancy. So I got a copy of it, and I just said, I was like, sounds interesting. Let me just apply. I applied. They called me. I went for the interview.
For what role was this?
A back-end engineer.
Back-end engineer. Okay.
Yeah. I applied. I went for the interview, and fortunately, I got the job. Basically, that was the first job I was applying for after
that
the whole strategizing thing. And I also want to believe that the fact that I had cloud certifications played a very huge role in how it went, because basically sort of like set me apart, because it was I wouldn't say it was new, like cloud services, but
not everyone.
It was a body niche back then. You could, before you get 10 you get 10 engineers before you get one cloud engineer back then. I got the job basically. So I started. I was working in Budget Nigeria. Budget is a civic tech organization. So they are like they are a non-profit organization, but they use technology to prefer like solutions to civic issues, civic challenges, and all of that. So I was the backend engineer. So I and my team, we built a lot of solutions. We built a lot of interesting things, and through all those projects, I grew more basically, and I got into technical writing. I started like teaching. I had my own blog. I had a blog on Medium. I started teaching people how to deploy things to the cloud. So I started writing, and then after a while, I started getting writing opportunities from big tech companies to help them write like technical articles. I started, so I would say writing really propelled my career, so to say.
Okay, and that's one part of tech that not many people want to really get into because
Mm,
it looks like it's a very burdensome role in terms of writing because a lot of heavy research has to actually go into it
mm,
before then produce or write something for someone. So
mm,
it's just to I think this also says that for someone to achieve so much which you have right now, there are a lot of what I call foundational things that were
mm,
in place already,
mm,
and not many people have writing as part of their story,
mm,
right? So I'm really interested about this writing part because
mm,
it just shows that aside the coding, aside the cloud stuff, there's also that
mm,
part where your creativity is used in a different way,
mm,
which is writing technical articles, which is not
mm.
an easy thing to do, by
Yeah.
the way,
Mm,
because it's supposed to appeal to a much larger people,
mm.
and someone's supposed to actually look at your article and be able to do stuff with it.
I'll give some instances
Yeah,
of how I think that writing sort of improved my career. I remember a blog article I wrote that paid me an equivalent of my monthly salary as at then.
just one article.
Yeah. I also had instances where people would call me, reach out to me from different parts of the world and say, "Oh, we had this problem in our company. We stumbled on your blog post.
Yeah.
It was very informative. It helped us solve this particular problem and all of that." And it really made me realize the impact of media in career progression.
Mm.
I doubled down on it. I actually just enjoyed writing. I actually never wrote for the visibility, but it just became like a byproduct of that endeavor,
Yeah.
basically. It was through writing that I got a call like 4 a.m. in the morning from a government official, not a Nigerian government official.
Okay.
It was an African country. They had issues with cloud, like their cloud stuff and all of that. They called me. I didn't know them from anywhere, but someone who had seen the articles I used to write, who used to follow those articles,
Mm-hmm.
had mentioned my name in the room and said, "Oh, if you have cloud
Cloud
issues,
issues. Go and see
call
this
this
guy.
guy."
Yeah.
So they reached out to me. It was on a weekend, and I think on a Saturday. By Sunday afternoon, I had already solved the problem, right?
And they've been having that for a
And
long
they were
time.
so excited about helping them move past that challenge. They remunerated me.
Yeah.
What they paid me was almost more than my monthly salary, and I was like,
If I continue like this,
you know,
why did you just face it?
and it goes back to what I
Yeah.
initially said
Yeah.
about if you want to improve your working conditions,
Mm.
you have to know something that a lot of people do not know,
Mm.
so that way
You kind of set
uh,
your own terms. You
you
decide how
you
you want to work.
you sort of have a say in how your working conditions go.
Mm.
It's economics. So that was it. I now began to like, wow, this cloud thing was the right decision, you know. Then that those series of events basically just kickstarted my consulting career. That just basically made me come to the realization that there is a growing demand for cloud engineering services. So I poured myself deeper into it. I experimented a lot, and as I was doing these experiments, I was sharing them online. I would write technical articles on them, basically. So I started consulting. I still had my full time job, so I started consulting. I was consulting for a company in the US. At the point I was also consulting for a company in Australia. So I was basically like just had to work in different time zones, work with people from different backgrounds,
Mm-hmm.
and it really opened my eyes to see how. So we went from seeing how things work corporately in Nigeria to how things
On a
worked
global,
corporately
yeah,
on a
on a
global
global
scale,
scale, yeah.
how teams were built, and for some weird reasons, like most companies I found myself, I either start as a technical lead or I end up being a technical lead. So, and even for some of the companies I was consulting for, even though I was a consultant, I was sort of still like took up a sort of like a quote unquote leadership role.
Okay.
Remember, like the entire goal for taking up a 9 to 5 or consulting, whatever it is, was to get an idea of how things are structured,
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
right,
you said
in
so.
the real world.
Yeah.
So I felt that I had gotten
That
like
experience.
enough of that knowledge. So I went back into what I started what I started my career with, and what I actually loved doing, which was building businesses and
So you resigned again.
building solutions. So I resigned again.
Okay.
I resigned my 9 to 5. I stopped some consulting jobs. I like basically just reduced it to the barest minimum. I reduced it to the point where I just still have enough to get by, so that I can focus on building my businesses, make hunger no kill man. So then I got into fintech, because when I started my entrepreneurship journey, I started in logistics and edtech.
Mm-hmm.
My knowledge was somewhat limited to that. The moment I came back into the game, then fintechs were getting popular. There was Paystack, there was Flutterwave, and I started, trying to see how this industry worked. I was learning. I was speaking to a couple of
You
people
wanted to get a piece of that pie, the
uh,
fintech pie.
I wouldn't class it as though, because I still thought that I was making relatively. I mean, if you're an engineer, you're an engineer, right?
Okay.
Whether you're working in fintech or in logistics or in beauty or fashion, we could say that like the remuneration was roughly the same,
Mm-hmm.
sort of, right? And sometimes I don't even think people get paid based on industry. I think people get paid based on the stature of the company that they work for.
Okay.
Would you get? So I was just curious, like, let me see what's going on. NIBs, NIP, virtual accounts, licenses, who can connect to who can integrate to who, what's the top-down structure like? Why can bank do this? Why can't they do this? Why are startups the ones doing this and not banks? All of those things. I poured myself into it. I tried to network with people who had been doing
that
fintech,
for a while,
to
yeah.
just see to maybe learn one or two
Were there
things
any
from them.
guys you were in contact with, maybe any of these OGs, fintech OGs at that time, that you were maybe close relationship with, and did you take anyone as a mentor, or did you go that route?
All my career, I've never had a mentor, basically, and maybe I sort of didn't see a need for it, right? Because most times people are very generous with their wisdom.
Okay.
So if you want to learn from someone, just go online, go and check what they've written, go and check interviews they've had, go and check conferences they've spoken at. Most times you would learn most of the things you need to learn from them without necessarily getting close to them.
Getting close to them, okay.
Right? At the end of the day, the bulk of the work is still on you, regardless of whatever you learn from them.
True.
You still have to do the work, basically, right? So because that was my opinion, doesn't necessarily mean it works for every other person.
Yeah.
Right? Because I believe that for most people, you need, especially when the industry has come of age now and is a bit mature, there's so many moving pieces. So you need someone to sort of ground you and give you clarity. Because back then there wasn't so much going on. So you could learn everything and get by. Right. But right now you can't be doing. There was a time I was a mobile engineer, there was a time I was back-end engineer, there was a time I was cloud engineer. There's like, even when you think about the things that you had to learn, they weren't so much compared to now. So you could probably get away with not having a mentor at that time. But if you compare it to now, there's AI, there's cloud computing, there's data, there's blockchain, there's a whole lot. There's VR, there's AR. There's a whole lot of things going on right now that the need for clarity is very, very important, right? The need to seek out knowledge from those who have done it before, right? So that you don't spread yourself too thin, basically, because
and burnout.
To make impact, there has to be some sort of narrowed focus, right? That's why, like, if you want to burn a paper, you put a magnifying glass to narrow the rays of the sun, and then it burns it.
Yeah.
Basically. So to actually have an impact, you have to sort of
focus
on something and get good at it. There's a lot of things to pass through to sort of seek out more experienced people to sort of
guide you through
it. Sometimes when you talk to people who are more experienced than you, they can sort of see your strengths and can nudge you into where they think that you would perform better.
Yeah.
Right. So I think that there's a huge need for mentorship, especially for people who are just starting out.
Okay.
Right. Because when I talk to people who are just starting out in tech, most times you can see that they are overwhelmed with the amount of things that they have
to learn.
the amount of information they even have to consume
Okay.
on how to start.
Mhm.
And that is because the industry has sort of reached a crescendo where so much has happened and there's so many things to learn.
So let me ask now. So the mentorship now, is it in the sense to guide them or more like to teach them? So where should beginners focus now? Is it getting mentorship for guidance or mentorship for learning? Because I know that these are also two different ends. So what would you say about that?
So I would say more of guidance, right?
Okay.
But it also has to entail what to learn,
Mm.
when to learn it, and in what progression to learn it.
So I mean the boot camps that are offering 2 weeks boot camps, 1 month boot camps,
Yeah.
and they tell you learn this skill
Mm.
and then you can be very good at it. So that means what you are saying now, that sort of counters that system of learning, because those boot camps are just going to pump you with knowledge for like 2 weeks and expect you to start doing this job. So what do you think about those boot camps? Do you think it's something that makes sense? Or people should just focus more on what you said, which is learning okay, get the guidance, but
Yeah.
you cannot skip the work.
Boot camps are good, right? But the challenge I have with boot camps is the expectations that is sold to prospective learners, right? They tell you learn cloud engineering in 3 months. Learn. I even see it a lot in project management. Learn project management in 1 month. The
I've
thing
seen
is,
2 weeks, 2 weeks boot camp.
so anything you can learn in a month, anything you can learn in 2 months,
Yeah.
it is not something valuable. And here's what I mean. I'm not saying that you won't get. I mean, 2 weeks of learning something can help you build a foundation.
True.
But what I mean is that anything you can learn in 2 months with the promise of you will become this in 2 months. So anything you can learn in 2 months, I don't really see that as valuable because you can do it in 2 months, it means a million other people can do it in 2 months. Right? So, and like I said, everything is economics, it's demand and supply. No matter how much, no matter the kind of knowledge you have, if somebody can wake up today and commit 2 months into learning and get to the same stage that you are, then what you have is not necessarily valuable,
yeah.
quote unquote,
Yeah.
right? Because don't get me wrong, you learn something, but my challenge is with the expectations that students have with those boot camps. That's why you see if you put out a JD to hire a backend engineer, you can get 1,000
Applications,
CVs,
yeah.
and 80% of these CVs are people who may not necessarily qualify for the role. But sometimes people because of the expectations that have been sold to them in the boot camps they went to, and some of them package their CVs for them and all of those things. So they feel like they already know these things, so they start applying. If you go on LinkedIn, you see, if you check like job applications, you see 500 people have applied, 800 people have applied. A lot of those, I've spoken to recruiters, especially the ones in London. Like, it's a challenge that they are facing right now. The challenge of having to actually pick people who are
Actually competent.
who are a good fit for that role. You put out a JD, 1,001 people apply, but you find it hard to even get 10% of the people who are actually fit for that role. So we need to be careful of this kind of expectations we sell when people come to boot camps. Boot camps are great, especially for people who are starting out. I mean, you meet people like you who are quote unquote on the same journey, right? Just like I said, that like you're like soldiers in a platoon. There's that bond that where you guys can learn together.
Yeah.
Basically, you can when you are less motivated, when you look to your friend who you met at the boot camp telling you they just did this yesterday, they just did that 2 days ago.
Kind of helps you.
You get so they are good, but like I said, we need to sort of manage the expectations of the students basically.
Okay, so now moving into we've talked about your career, we've talked about how you started, we've talked about the experiences. I understand that you're involved with some startups. Do you want to just give a bit more information about about that and how your experience actually helped you transition?
Do your proper research.
Yeah.
See how it aligns with your own strengths.
Yeah.
And bet on yourself.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. So now, off the back of that, so if you're to advise your younger self, maybe with what you've known, what you know right now, if you're to just advise your younger self, what kind of advice would you give yourself?
When I retrospect, right, I've always felt like largely took the right decisions on most stuff.
Okay.
By some sheer luck, because most times when you look back, you'd realize that you probably didn't even know what you were doing.
Yeah.
Right. But if I had to do it again, I would probably still
Do the same thing.
do the same thing, but in a more grounded manner, because I've realized that there were a lot of things that doing my research I realized were going to be very important in 2 years to come, in 3 years to come. But even though I bet on them, I wished I bet on them even more.
Okay, to get
Right.
greater returns.
So it's like in having not necessarily greater returns, but
Yeah.
so like in having conviction, you have to ensure that your conviction is even deeper. There is no upside to doing anything in a lukewarm manner, right? If you look around, everybody that you see, everybody that people see and want to be like, are good at one thing, right? And they are very good at it, and they bet on those things, right?
Yeah.
So that's how you generally want to lead life.
Okay.
Do you get? That's how I generally want to lead life. When you figure out, if you know you have a particular strength, you have to bet on it, right? For instance, if you knew 5 years ago that Nvidia was going to be such a big company, like if you saw the pointers, there's no point buying $1 of that stock.
Yeah, just probably go all in.
Because 500% of $1 is just $5. Makes no sense, right?
Mm-hmm.
There is no advantage. There's no advantage in knowing that something is going to be valuable in 5 years' time if you don't exceedingly bet on it. There's no advantage, none at all.
Okay.
Right? So that's the advice I'll probably like give a younger person, right? If you are convinced about something, have a very deep conviction, follow through, do the work.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Gbenga. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you for having me.
And it's been a very long chat, and it's really valuable. I've learned a lot, right? It helped me, open my mind to many things. And I want to say thank you to everyone who has watched this video this far. You're a real OG, and don't forget to like, share, and even subscribe. I'm going to put more details, about the chats in the description box. Feel free to check those details out, and just watch this video over and over again if you really need to get some major things out of it. And thank you so much for sticking with me to this while. Thank you, Gbenga.